Police in Roseville.
The title says, Detroit really that bad? Since my car just got stole last night. We done answered that question already.
The abandoned apartment building in Highland Park.
A triple shooting caught on camera.
Police in Roseville are calling this driver a person of interest.
Police would find the body of a woman in the bed of that truck.
When the entire city of Detroit burned to the ground, leaving behind only a fort, a warehouse, and a brick chimney, a Catholic priest stepped in to survey the remains, only to find that not a single resident of Detroit had died in the fire. Amazed, he uttered the words, "We hope for better things. It shall rise from the ashes." And this became the city motto of beautiful Detroit. When Henry Ford saw the so-called Paris of the West, he built his automobile empire here alongside Dodge and Chrysler. And this led to major developments in the economy and transportation. And once alcohol was outlawed in the United States, those Detroit boys made a fortune smuggling the firewater in from Canada. During the Second World War, Detroit was key in helping American production.
Talking about smuggling, we talking about murders and robberies.
Led to hundreds of thousands of people from all backgrounds, including the South and Western Europe. And this led to hundreds of thousands of people from all backgrounds, including the South and Western Europe, coming into the city to work and benefit from this economic boom. But either way, having 60% of your economy all in one industry is like having all your eggs in one basket.
Where the murders and robberies be?
You drop that basket, you've lost everything. And this is in stark contrast to another Great Lakes city like Chicago, which has the most diverse economy in the country. And when the oil crisis hit in the 70s, the system started to crumble. As plants closed or did mass layoffs, crime increased, culminating in the deadliest mass murder in the history of Detroit happening in 1971, which today, after over 50 years, still remains unsolved, with not a single suspect being positively identified. And this was just the start of Detroit's terrifying decline. Like Chicago, Detroit was a mob city in the years following the Second World War, and it was the Zarelli family, partnering with the Sicilian Mafia, to become the main distributors of heroin before being severely weakened by a RICO indictment in 1996. And like most cities, the homicides peaked here from the 70s to the 90s, but still has not reached those same numbers. And more disturbingly, city officials noted that from then until the 2000s, about 65 to 70% of these murders were narcotics related. Now, by far the most popular musician in the past 30 years to come out of the city is Marshall Mathers, whose early music I can best describe as broken home music, and it's not hard to see why. And despite the drop in homicides in the 2010s, the rate at which you're likely to be murdered in Detroit only increased, and it remains near the top today. Unfortunately, the city sits within a group I call the Bloody Four: Baltimore, Chicago, St. Louis, and Detroit. All four consistently rank in the bottom of homicide clearance rates, meaning no matter how many of these happen in the city, the police are unlikely to solve, well, most of them. Some of this scary behavior was seen more recently when those 3 underground rappers were found dead in an abandoned house that the city refused to tear down, while their remains were being eaten by rats. And I honestly don't know if I've ever spoken a more disturbing sentence, even talking about my home city of Chicago. And something else that I've never heard of that happens in Detroit that was historically a British and Canadian tradition is Devil's Night. Now, I know how scary Halloween can get in the city. Growing up in Chicago, it was a night where you were likely to see vans pull up on the side of you, slide the doors, and then there was a 50-50 chance of whether they upped a real gun or a paintball gun. Either way, you didn't wait to find out. It was a night of true fear in the most dangerous parts of the city, but of course not all of it. In Detroit, however, it appears to have become a night of arson. I've never heard of a night where people dedicate their time to setting fire to buildings.
Devil's Night, everybody took over everything, tried to burn down everything. They tried to reestablish it, turn it into Angel's Night, just to give it a good look, and everybody start trying to fix the neighborhood up and do good for that night. They had safety patrols and all that crap off.
Now, Detroit people, these stats say that the tradition is dying out, so let me know the facts in the comments. Hopefully it is. Because even in Chicago, you're still more likely to get your house TP'd or shot at with a paintball gun than you are to get your building set on fire. And also, taking a look at this gang map, if this is accurate, I have never seen such space between hoods in my entire life. Apparently, Detroit has enclaves, parts of the city that are completely separated from the city, and despite being a block or so away from one dangerous neighborhood, you'll have an enclave that experiences basically none of the crime. The closest I've seen to this in person is maybe Greektown, Little Italy, and Chinatown in Chicago, but these are still definitely not areas you want to mess with the locals. And another thing that has to be talked about is the population of Detroit. In just 10 years from 2000 to 2010, nearly 150,000 people left the city for good, and this has been a trend since the factory started closing in the 70s. To go from a population of 1.5 million in 1970 to about 640,000 in 2021 is staggering to say the least. It almost resembles that of a refugee crisis. But it seems like most people from Detroit just moved to Ann Arbor, Lansing, and even Chicago. True Midwest people never wanted to go too far from those Great Lakes. But this is not the whole of Detroit's story. The state of Michigan had a population boost in 2022, with Detroit leading the way, seeing about 11,000 people move to the city. And Detroit has been diversifying its economy for years now. Meijer opened its first superstore here, and Chase invested $50 million into affordable housing, job training, and entrepreneurship, with this number increasing to $200 million by the end of 2022. And one thing any working class city needs is young people. And the fact that you can see Ontario, Canada from Detroit, and the fact that the drinking age over there is 19 has attracted a lot of young people. 19 seems pretty young to drink, but I guess Canada is technically kinda a part of the Commonwealth of the United Kingdom, where the drinking age is like 18. And who can forget Motown? If you're from the Midwest or even Memphis, you'll have heard plenty of old heads back in the day tell you how they either used to be a part of some Motown group or they almost were and they got cut out of a deal or something. And I'm even related to Teddy Pendergrass, kinda by marriage. He married my grandma's sister or cousin or something. Anyway, we went to visit the family in Memphis one time and they lived in this huge mansion, and it was my first time actually seeing some people with money. It was also my first time seeing one of those couples with a huge age difference. We were at a funeral of one of the older members of the family, and it was an old man's funeral, but there was some 25-year-old woman in the front row crying. And as a stupid kid, I asked my mom, "Who is this lady?" And she said, "That's the old man's wife." Anyway, I've always been fascinated at how each Great Lakes city has its own unique identity and sets their own trends instead of all just sharing one big Great Lake identity. Makes sense though. This area was always a gold mine, from the big money coming into the ports because, each lake leads to our biggest trading partner in Canada, to each city, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Chicago turned into beachside paradises in the summer, since Lake Michigan starts to look like the Pacific Ocean to us down here. Even Miller Beach in Indiana, despite it being way too close to Gary for comfort. Just kidding, Gary people, I love y'all too. But seriously, most of the music grandma and them used to get down to back in the day comes from this city. The man who single-handedly changed the narrative about white rappers came from this city. And honestly, somebody had to clean up the mess Vanilla Ice left behind. The Bad Boy Pistons, every 90s dude in Chicago's #1 enemy in sports, to the Lions fan base, one of, if not the most loyal sports fan base on the planet, pulling together fan turnouts like this, despite not winning a conference title in almost 70 years, is something truly special. Even the 2024 NFL Draft, which was in Detroit, set an attendance record with over 775,000 people coming out, which is more people that live in the city of Detroit itself.
Go Lions.
Kind of been on the up for a few years now. They beat bankruptcy, they beat the collapse of the motor industry in America, and let's not forget that it's the city that burned and rose from the ashes. Founded by the French and made fully American by the USA, long live the Motor City. And to all my people in Flint and Lansing, East Lansing, don't worry, I'll come back around to you guys. Also, I do think it's kind of cool that when a lot of people in Michigan try to explain where they live, they just hold up their hand and point from their finger to their thumbs.
Yeah, he ain't even went through how Detroit bad or not, man. Detroit got a rep of being bad, but he went through the history. He should have named this the history of Detroit.